Mr. H, class, I'm here to talk to you today about social justice warriors' new itchy trigger finger. Imagine for a moment that you are an American history professor teaching the Civil War to students. You're at Harvard, you've had plenty of accolades and experiences to your name, so you think you've seen everything. But then one day, the dean calls you in, and he talks to you about language that you used in your last seminar. He couldn't remember any expletives, so you ask him what language. He says the term black was used to talk about various people of color. And some students in your class were offended. Or he used the words emotionally harmed. Now, we've talked about this many times before, but the dean talks to you about these new teachers groups and student groups pushing for this new thing called trigger warnings, which are basically content warnings placed before any media, placed before students, so that they may know whether they're going to be offended or not and may exclude themselves from class. Now, the issue here is that as an American history professor especially, you deal with socially charged issues the entire year. You would have to put a content warning before every single seminar, which kind of defeats the purpose of the entire thing. Now, these new policies, such as trigger warning policies or microaggression policies or whatever you would say, have very detrimental effects and have huge problems with them. The main two being the faulty logic at their core and the counterproductiveness psychologically. First, we're going to talk about the faulty logic at their core. Everyday Feminism recently wrote in an article that the words trigger warning are, in and of themselves, a trigger. They said that you should replace it with content warning. They started their article with this gem: content warning. The issue in question has triggering in it and talks about normal triggering things such as rape, abuse, sexual abuse, violence, racism, and other general phobias. And you see, the problem with that is inside their own content warning are several triggering words. If in fact these words harm people, they just assaulted the reader. It's idiotic, it doesn't make any sense, and it's just annoying. Now, the other thing we need to talk about is a book by George Orwell called 1984. In 1984, Big Brother, the giant government agency, oppresses its people and smashes them into the dirt using thought policing. Thought policing is the method where they control what society thinks and says. This is a terrible, terrible thing in the book. It's a main theme in the book, and it's part of a hugely oppressive society. We don't want to become 1984 by George Orwell. And if more students had spent time paying attention to his book than getting offended by it, then maybe we wouldn't have this problem today. The other thing I want to talk about is the counterproductiveness of the movement. This movement is supposed to protect students. It's supposed to keep them from harm, but in fact is attacking their psyche. Lukianoff and Haidt wrote in the article for The Atlantic called The Coddling of the American Mind that this method is counter-therapeutic. In therapy, we attack what are called cognitive distortions, which are misconceptions our brain has about the world around them, by exposure, by immersion, by showing people that there's nothing to be afraid of. If you're afraid of the word black, they force you to become accustomed to the word black so that it doesn't hurt you anymore. You realize the word doesn't hurt you. It's all in your head. Of course, this new movement is the opposite of that. It shuns the word from existence, and it makes students have an extra thin skin for when they finally go out in the world. It's a terrible idea. When they get out there, they're not going to be treated with these kid gloves, and they're going to get slapped around, and it's going to be ugly. So, I've talked about the logic of the thing, and I've talked about the counterproductiveness and the fact that this attacks our psyche as students, and we shouldn't stand for it. I say, get up. Go out there, talk to your dean, talk to your professors, talk to your other students, make sure everyone understands that this is a bad thing, that we need to talk and communicate and embrace these socially charged issues and be prepared to talk about them. Yes, we shouldn't actually visibly talk and be super specific about rape and things like that would trigger PTSD people, but we need to talk about them so that we can prevent these things from happening. If we are not even allowed to talk about offensive things, nothing is going to get fixed. So I say again, get up, go out there, talk, call, write, whatever you need to do to get the word out. Just make sure that no one gets this wrong, please. Any comments or questions? Thank you. Back to you, Mr.